On the 3rd of January 2025, I did something I honestly didn't think I would ever do. I finished Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And with the month coming to an end and my usual videos needing to be put out, I thought I would turn my mic and keyboard to letting you know my thoughts on the game. I won't be going into too much background here. After all, this isn't going to be a massive video like my Assassin's Creed Rogue one was, but the background and story details, it's recommended that you have a general idea of what it's like. Highly recommend either playing through the game yourself or watching a video essay on the topic if you don't want to sink an extra 150 hours in it to get a better understanding. Like most things on this channel that are legitimately worth watching, this was heavily inspired by a different YouTuber in the video essay scene. This time, it was Laser Z. With his I Just Played Dark Souls videos, significantly less scripted than my normal monthly videos. I have recently finished Red Dead Redemption 1 and still trying to figure out what kind of video I want to make with that, because it is an amazing game and I want to do it justice when it comes to recording, but figured may as well put that idea off to the side and steal the idea of the I Just Played Dark Souls video and attempt to parse through my thoughts on this game. So, without any further ado, here are my thoughts after finishing Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
That Odin himself stirred on his throne to watch. They will say that ravens blackened the sky to feast on Saxon dead. So raise your swords with me now, brothers and sisters, for today is the day we carve our names into legend!
Starting out right off the bat, we have the most obvious criticism of the game. It feels way too damn long. It could be the way I play games in general, just sitting down and blasting through the game in about a fortnight to a month, absolutely destroying my sleep schedule before finding a new game and repeating the process all over again. But this game, it felt like it stretched on forever and ever. And honestly, the playtime I spent with it totaled being played over, I think it was about four years at this point. Maybe 3, since that's when I got my new computer. But having spent a whopping 123 hours to complete all the major storylines available, just through everything over the years, especially with its appearance in my Game Awards that I do on the channel every year. So the length of the playthrough was about the same as a single run of The Witcher 3 or Cyberpunk 2077, which are easily some of my favorite games I've ever played. If I had to immediately think of a problem that causes this, I would say it's probably the pacing. Each county you get in an alliance with has a fairly well-contained and pretty well-written story. The major issue I find with it is everything is too contained. There's no major overarching plot beyond getting alliances, and outside of 1 or 2 major story moments, they don't have any effect on anything else. You rarely see characters from one county interacting with another, and depending on the choices, it could have changed how it went, making it easier or harder, but the fact you can do them in any order is a massive detriment, as the developers couldn't plan any through line between them, as they have no idea of which order you're gonna tackle them, especially with how everything works out. A potential way I could see this being fixed is simply reduce the number of counties that are essential to be claimed for the story to fully progress. Maybe you only have the major cities like Jorvik, London, Winchester, 3 major cities that you need to conquer to fully progress the story, or at least get it to the end point. And then you can capture the surrounding territories and fully incorporate everything under your control. I feel like that could be a good way to sort of meet in the middle, The major cities required, but surrounding countryside reduces the challenge of the final fights. So if you want, you can engage with it, but it's not required. And with that, there would have to be a set order in which they're done, so that a continuously leading thread can be followed. Because with the current order being as follows, you chase after Sigurd's ideas, or try to get him back, get sidetracked with subjugating another region because, well, that's what the game told you to do, and you can't progress further. And then you get yelled at by Dag or someone else at a settlement for doing exactly what the game told you to do and not focusing on getting Sigurd back. But if you could choose to focus on, say, getting Sigurd back, and that would raise his opinion of you in those moments after he loses his arm and starts to fuse more with Tyr, or you can choose to dilly-dally around, more of a completionist way, collecting kingdoms, loyalty, favors, allies, whole kit and caboodle. It would have made the accusations leveled at you by Dag so much more cutting, because they were your choices that you made. Your odyssey. Your saga, if you will. The saga that you chose to write, coming back to bite you in the ass like a hungry wolf. This would also help, as they could focus on making it be of more interconnecting side stories that have more time put into the writing, connecting to each other with legitimate consequences beyond, a slight change in narration at the very end of the game. Something else that didn't quite work. I do appreciate that the side quests were changed from how they were in Odyssey, as they were mostly fetch quests there of questionable decency, but they feel too small. I understand that side quests, or world events as I think they're called, are supposed to be, a flash in the pan sort of moment. Nothing major, doesn't stick with you too long. But when it comes to side quests, and how they're designed, I always keep thinking back to The Witcher 3 with the frying pan. It is small, contained, but it sticks with you long after because of just how well written it is. Learning everything, the hint with the monocle, maybe Taller's, the spy that needed to get the soot from the pan, to mix with oil and create a letter. And as a result, you end up finding a whole bit of conspiracy in the area that you might be able to find other references to about the world, but it's all contained within, I want to say, like a 10-yard radius of the old woman looking for her pan. And one very, very minor gripe that has no bearing on anything else as a whole. Are we really to believe that Eivor never killed a civilian, and us doing so would result in complete desynchronization with the Animus? We get to raid and pillage monasteries, burn houses and fields of random people, but we can't do the historical pastime of civilian population control. Again, it's a very minor gripe and could go against the general atmosphere that the series is trying to grow. But while it is an inconsequential thing, it still is a question, I think, that's sort of going around as to why Shay can freely murder when he joins the Templars. But he joins specifically to not kill more civilians, especially after the earthquake in Lisbon. But the literal Viking warrior, known for their surprise attacks, general population adjustment of civilians, and then disappearing with all their goods, why is the Viking prohibited from doing so? The other major issue is just the world design when it comes to collectibles. This is a Ubisoft game. I will use the term I have messed around with, Ubi-esque. This is a Ubi-esque map. No shit. It has so many collectibles, it's aggravating. But on the bright side, the world is wonderful to look at. Each little bit is magnificent. Now that I have properly finished whinging, the issue that makes it so hard to fully place my thoughts on the game is the ending of Sigurd and Eivor's story. It comes around with a magnificent scene. Having found ourselves in Valhalla, we as players know what it truly is. Nothing but a precursor site, not unlike the observatory found in 1719 within the West Indies by a Welsh pirate, or seismic temples scattered throughout the globe being fiddled with by the colonial Brotherhood and Templar orders. And having seen how all the sausages are actually made, this afterlife isn't really what it seems to be. We're cast into this role, living the same day again and again, being changed to try and keep us trapped. And with all this, after seeing our father, who died in a dishonorable way, throwing down his weapon to try and save everyone, we decide that we've had enough of this ruse. We try to leave, being met with fierce resistance by the Allfather himself. The fight is unwinnable, always being beaten back so long as we keep our blade. Each strike not doing much before eventually we learn the way forward. The same way our father fell. We let go of our weapons and we walk through unimpeded. And the scene that comes after this is easily one of my favorites. And it's a shame it's stapled to a game that I am so conflicted over.
Take off your axe!
Everything else indeed. I firmly dislike the pacing of the story, how the arcs are, the general size of the world being overly bloated, far more beyond what it should be. It could have been half the size, and I would have enjoyed it even more. But I adore everything else. The world, even in its bloated size, is still beautiful, and well worth exploring, if nothing else, than to purely bask in it. Enjoy the warm rays of sunshine, see the lights of the aurora soaring high above the North Sea. The voices of Eivor and Elfred, each telling their own story. The history behind these figures and everything else surrounding them. And above all, the history of the Isu being weaved into the stories of Norse myth I grew up reading about as a child. Here, at the end of a different story, we end up seeing a man who later would be known as the Great, now reduced to washing linens and baking buns. We see the joys of this simple life and the beauty of the world in all of its creation. The Order of Ancients, a group filled with cultish symbols and backstabbing orders trying to control everything, now destroyed from within, being replaced with symbols of the new order. The tree has been cut down, and from its roots, a new one will grow, to guide the people forward in unity and harmony. The symbols replaced after the purge, orchestrated by its own Grand Magister, riding away from the great man himself. We hear a song, Ragnarok, Twilight of the Gods, playing as we ride through forests and field of flowers, cross brook and bramble. Alfred is right. We did save England from the Order, and now England will save us. In time. The beauty of this world, it cannot be ignored nor resisted. Even as someone who hates how this game handles its parkour and traversal throughout the world, seeing a lot of the decisions made with social stealth and the traditional Assassin's Creed elements being completely asinine, the beauty of the game has pulled me in. I have not fallen in love with this game, but into acceptance of what this game is. There are wonderful parts, like the quick-time events for assassinations, actually putting some additional skill into having these assassinations in this current mess of a game. But this game, it was neither Assassin's Creed when it comes to my mind, and would have been better served as something under a different banner. Maybe an Animus adventure, or if you wish to keep the AC title, maybe the Animus Chronicles. This would solve so many of the issues I have with the game, and nor was it a bad game. For all its faults, it is still the best-selling Assassin's Creed game, so clearly there is an audience willing to burn through this game over and over again, to experience the story of Javi, of the Raven Clan, and of England's survival from two fronts. Survival from the Order of Ancients, and survival from the assault of the great heathen army. And with this, as my thoughts are mostly settled, I'm finishing this script. The sun is shining on the snowing mountains outside my window. The air is crisp and clear, with the wind nipping at my cheeks. The game holds so many wonderful moments towards the end, hidden behind too many hours and too many areas that need to be cleared. And yet, it's dragged down and out by enough bloat to make me quit the game several times over, but I kept coming back. It has a title stapled onto it that it does not deserve, but it does its best to bear that cross. And the world spoken of by Aelfred is the very same I mentioned before. The same I hike and ski through in winter. The same aspen leaves shaking in the wind in fall. The same streams and lakes I fish from in the summer. And the very same spring storms that I ski upon. And these worlds are only separated by a mere 46,000 miles. The world holds such beauty to explore, even if it isn't right for me to behold it. This is not the game for me, and to hold such flaws I cannot forgive it for what it is. But I can and will hold the sentiments dear given to me by the burner of cakes, for even in that which we cannot find love, we can still learn from, and the natural beauty of the world is wondrous, and it should not be resisted or ignored.